The Mental Breakdown Podcast. Get ready for your LSATs.
I have taken the LSAT.
I have yet to take the LSAT.
I have taken the LSAT.
I have also taken the LSAT.
I don't want to take the LSAT. I'm not interested in law that much. Not anymore, at least. But this is not about me today. Today is all about the LSAT, as well as people who are interested in taking the LSAT, because there will be no L's on the LSAT. So you guys are all winners in my heart. Anyway, so today's episode, I'm Grace, and I will be doing a little bit of the hosting today, and we're going to be talking about the LSAT for all of those Poli students who are interested in going into law. Before we begin, I would just like to do a little bit of an introductory segment where we introduce our hosts as well as our special guest today, if that's all good. Yeah. Who should we start with? Well, I said my name already, so yeah. I think I'm going to choose you.
Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm glad to be back on the second episode of the MenTB, aka the Mental Breakdown. My name is Nagar, and I am one of your hosts today. And I will pass it on to Kaden because we have a very special guest that I'm going to reserve for the end.
Of course. Hello everyone, back as a guest on this podcast. One who is very keen to learn more about the LSAT. And I'm with three people who have a lot of experience with the LSAT. And Grace is joining as well.
Next,
everyone.
Yeah. So my name's Ariana. I have taken the LSAT and very excited to field their questions and talk about this. And we also have, as we've said, a very special guest with us today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. I'm Leah. I am a guest today on the Mental Breakdown podcast. On this special LSAT episode, I definitely wasn't forced to be here. I'm so happy to be here. And I joined. I'm here in accordance to my own free will.
You're not smiling enough.
I'm a third-year political science student here at UBC, and I also serve as the VP Marketing of the PSSA. So, AG Allegra, you guys have bullied me into this, but there's
no bullying.
No, I'm very happy to come here and share my experiences about the LSAT, as limited as it might have been, to Poli students at UBC. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Don't listen to everything Leah says. We don't condone bullying, so this was done through her free will.
Yeah, you heard it from her.
Exactly.
She willingly came to us.
Exactly.
To do this.
Exactly. She was smiling, so smile a bit more. A little bit more.
Yeah,
Good. Yeah, look at how she's smiling.
But before we get into the lovely experiences that everyone has had with the LSAT, we should probably say what this acronym even means. What does it even stand for?
Wait,
Do you want to guess?
I do want to guess, actually.
Yeah, Grace, you can guess.
Is it legal studies application test?
Oh, so close.
Am I smart?
Yeah.
Should I go take the LSAT right now? Oh. Yeah, I'm in the 0th percentile.
The lovely Leah can tell us what it actually means, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the LSAT stands for the Law School Admissions Test. And to the extent of my knowledge, it's the standardized test that's used across Canada and the US and a growing number of countries around the world, I believe, to kind of determine a student's ability to excel in law school. That being said, people have mixed opinions, I think, over whether or not it is a good indicator of how well someone will do in law school. But you were very close. Legal studies aptitude test.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in Poli do want to take the LSAT, but I also want to give a reminder, if you're not interested in taking the LSAT, then don't worry. We have another episode coming up for any Poli students who are interested in anything but law school or the LSAT, such as internships. So yeah, stay tuned in for that. Make sure you are following our Instagram, you're subscribed to our YouTube, you are following our Spotify, and you are listening to the podcast. Mm-hmm. Amazing. So,
for today's episode on the podcast, asking the people who have taken the LSAT what their experiences were about it, and tips and tricks is going to be kind of how we're formatting today. So if you're interested or think you might be interested in the LSAT, keep your ears peeled for the rest of this episode as we will be going over all of this.
Yeah, keep your ears peeled. I've never heard anyone say that.
It's the age difference. It's the age
difference. Eyes peeled, I've heard. Ears peeled.
I think I say it as like a joke to eyes peeled, ears peeled, you know? Yeah.
Well, no
have
one
made-
laughed.
People
You're
have
so
made
funny.
fun of me before, but thanks, Nagar. Nice to
See,
meet
if
So-
you're gotten this far, then write a comment about how weird Kaden is.
Yeah. Or if you say ears peel or eyes peel.
If you say keep your ears peeled alongside Kaden, drop a like. Anyways, okay. I guess we can just go around and see who answers the question, or if anyone has a specific answer that they want to share. But I'm really keen right now, given your or how the LSAT is formatted and what does it look like.
Think.
Do you want? Oh, I was asking if you wanted to answer what I was like.
I was just thinking, from my like general understanding of the LSAT, there are like specific sections. So I was thinking maybe each of you guys can just describe one of the sections that were on your tests, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can pass the logical reasoning pass to Ariella, if you want to explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the sections, and a really important one, starting August 2024, is the logical reasoning section. And so that section is basically in the name. It tests your logical reasoning and how you kind of approach and solve problems. Most questions break down into some assumptions you might have to have, a main argument, and potentially some flaws and some conclusions. And why I said it's an important thing starting August 2024 is that the LSAC, who runs and administers the LSAT, do we want to guess what that stands for?
Now.
So the Law School's Admissions Council, that's right? Yeah, the Law School's Admissions Council.
Even I knew it.
So they have changed the format of the LSAT starting August 2024. Instead of 3 sections comprising of logical reasoning, reading comp, and what's the other one?
Logic games.
Logic games. They have changed it instead to have 2 logical reasoning sections and 1 reading comp to count for your overall score. So yes, it's a very increasingly important section, and yeah.
Amazing. Did anyone here take the logic games section in their LSAT? Or we would all post June 2024?
I took it in a diagnostic, and I wasn't a fan.
Well, there we go. That's a win.
So it was a win for me.
Well, many
a little
people
bit.
are a fan of the
Although,
logic
yes.
games because
Yeah.
it's the one with the most potential for growth. Like you can start by scoring like negative
Yeah.
14 and bring it up down to 0.
I will say, once you set up like the game correctly, I think you save a lot.
I did personally take the equivalent to Phil 220 at UBC, which helps you with the logic games quite a bit. And I was quite saddened to hear the news that they took away the logic game section.
I want to get into this a little bit actually.
Yeah, we
now
can
that
talk
we're
about it.
talking about logical reasoning, I kind of want to shout out a few courses that I think like really prepared me for logical reasoning in my kind of poli sci philosophy career. I'm a combined major. I highly recommend you to take the combined major. Wink, wink. So Phil 120 is an amazing one, and also Phil 220, which you mentioned. Phil 120 is critical thinking, so you will learn a little bit of those logical translations, and then you'll get into it really in depth in Phil 220. But then also with the necessary and sufficient conditions aspect to the logical reasoning questions, I gotta say, I learned quite a bit of that in Poly 110. I don't know if you guys had the same experience. So I walked in kind of having a little bit of familiarity with causation, necessary, sufficient, assumptions. So I feel like poli sci does give you a leg up if you're trying to go to law school in that regard.
No, I agree, because even though logic games has been removed, a result of that I feel like was more like logic games-esque questions in logical reasoning. So even though it has been removed, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is would be pretty useful.
And I did hear like most of like the LSAT, like logical reasoning as well, is not necessarily like learning anything new, but it's rather just like practicing over and over again. And that's how you like, it's not really like studying for anything, but it's just like understanding how the questions are going to work.
Especially for logical reasoning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember when I took the philosophy course, the selling point at the end to take philosophy as a major was that how great philosophy students did on the LSAT, specifically for the logic aspect of it.
And it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for any SFU students out there, that is Phil 105 and Phil 110 as well.
And how do you even know that?
As
You
a
learned your-
transfer student, I didn't know which course goes critical thinking and logical reasoning at SFU.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a little too much about logical reasoning now, but I was actually also curious about reading comprehension because I had a few friends that took LSAT last year, and I did hear some complaints about reading comprehension. I don't know if it was good or bad complaints, but there was some talk about it.
Do you want to talk about reading comp?
And then I can talk. I'm a little bit rusty on it. I haven't touched the LSAT in a while, but reading comprehension, you basically get, I want to say, 3 different passages?
4 or 5.
Oh, there's like 4.
There's like 4 of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I have a much milder recall of the reading comprehension. And then they're on the topics of, I think, either you get a humanities one, a science one, or like a
Everything, yeah.
literature one, right?
Yeah, there's also law and
Law.
like social issues as well. It really depends.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, they would say that it's the least teachable one because it's a skill that you should have been developing throughout your whole life. It's reading. And yeah, it has questions that surround like the main conclusion, finding specific facts in there. I personally am not a fan, but that's maybe because I haven't been doing all my Poli Sci readings. I'm curious to hear if you guys like reading comprehension.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, it's reading comp. I think there's just no way to get better at them than practice them, to be very honest. Like nothing will, like, if you don't necessarily have the skills to read and digest information quickly, there's no way you're going to be able to do that in a high pressurized testing setting. So I do think, at least with reading comp, you can read all the books you like, but nothing's going to help you as much as testing yourself on it.
I think that goes for all the sections, really. There's, like Grace said, there's no real way to kind of study content. You just have to keep doing these practice tests. And, yeah, I guess from my experience for reading comp, it was okay. I mean, I used to, so Lore drop, I was supposed to be an English minor instead of a history one. But, so yeah, a little exposure to that kind of, testing, but I will say it was okay. The only thing I had a bone to pick with was the comparative passages. It's not that they were hard. I did not like them.
What are the comparative passages?
So the comparative passages are, so usually you'd get 4 or 5 passages that you'd have to do reading comp for. If there's a comparative passage, it's 2 passages instead. And then each of them would be half the length of a regular one. And you'd have to read both. And then the questions are kind of asking about both. So an example could be, what does passage B say that passage A doesn't? Or vice versa, what does passage A say that passage B also says? Where do they disagree? Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like what you do in like essays for poly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask you some really interesting questions. Like, if you had to pick the best set of titles for passage A and passage,
That's a common. Yeah.
which is really interesting. And it's like, sometimes I just feel like I'm answering based off the words.
Yeah. Well, for that question specifically, and interestingly enough, it was a very common question.
It was.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want it.
Do you think you guys were quite successful in that? Because I feel like that's very related to a lot of what we do in political science.
Yeah, I definitely think that a career or undergraduate career in political science helped with that as well. And just reading in general, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
That's
You
pretty
can
cool.
pass a little bit about just the questions that are kind of on the LSAT. Is there any more on the actual format of the LSAT that you guys want to touch on?
Yeah, I can talk about this. So the LSAT is basically comprised of 4 sections. So for those of you who don't have friends or siblings that's taken the LSAT, I guess this is your very basic rundown of what it looks like. The LSAT, I believe, is comprised of 4 sections, which used to consist of either logic games, reading comp, or reasoning, but now consists of 2 logical reasonings. 3 reasoning sections, 1 reading comp section, and 1 unscored variable section. What I dislike about the unscored variable section is they don't actually tell you which of your 4 sections are unscored variables. So you kind of have to go through all four of the sections of thinking.
And what do you mean by variable?
So what do you mean?
What's a variable section?
Yeah. So the unscored variable section is basically they'll give you an extra section of either LR or RC, so logical reasoning or reading comp, to test out questions that they're going to use in future iterations of the LSAT based on how test takers from that cycle perform. Generally, what I personally found in my practice tests were that if I got 2 and 2, that was really helpful. But if I had like 3 LRs and then 1 RC, I really like.
You can't tell. Yeah.
They are kind of split up in the sense that you will do the first 2, and I think you get how long of a break?
A 10-minute break.
A 10-minute break between the first 2 sections and the last 2 sections. And I think each of the sections you get like 35 minutes.
That's correct.
Yeah. And usually you're answering 26 or 27 questions in those 35 minutes. So really the LSAT kind of tests your ability to handle logic and use logical reasoning in a time crunch because theoretically you should be able to teach someone in grade 8 how to do the questions perfectly on the LSAT. The LSAT in itself kind of tests how well you can do them fast.
Actually, I do have a question. You talked about, so how long does the LSAT take and like where would you take it? Because you kind of talked about the format and then I know you mentioned it was like 35 minutes for like each section. Like how long is the LSAT overall? And then like where would you normally take it? Like I'm a little curious about that.
Yeah, so I guess like if you add up all 4 of the sections together plus the 10 minutes that you have for the break, it would put you at like almost 3 hours. So doing about 2.5 hours, I think, taking, which is, I guess, less intense than like the MCAT, which I've heard is like a 7
hours, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. I can't imagine doing that because my attention span is already like struggling with the 2.5 hours. But you actually have the option to take the LSAT either in person at a testing center or online and virtually. I don't know. Are we all virtual testing?
Yeah.
I took it virtually and it was so weird. So
It was
you log
an intense
on there,
process, yeah.
And your exam invigilator, they're like outsourced, right?
They are.
So they're like from all across the globe. They have the thickest accents. And then listen, they're like, yeah, showing me like around the room, under the table, up your legs, up your sleeves, behind your ears, like everything.
No,
I was
absolutely.
like, wait, is this like in the guidelines or am I just getting violated now?
No, you're so right because mine had to, I had to show, so I was showing underneath my chair, right? But there was a sticker, I think it was like a warning sign or whatever. And they made me show that. I had to zoom in. I was like, is this like, what am I doing? And they are from all parts of the world. Coincidentally, I think at least the proctor from the beginning who was checking, not the proctor that, actually invigilated my exam. I'm pretty sure she was Filipino because like, and they were in the Philippines because, thick accent. And then in the background, you could just hear people speaking Tagalog. Yes. And so I guess that was helpful for me though, because I was a ball of nerves. So just hearing that, I was like, oh,
I was like, that's my people.
yeah,
That's where I belong right now. I should be in the warmth of the Philippines and not taking an exam right now.
yeah, it was a little disarming, but I was like, hey, I feel a little bit better now. Here you go.
I also was a virtual test taker. I have a very funny horror story. Oh gosh, but we'll get into that later.
I think we have similar. Yeah.
Low points in our studying LSAT. But my, so the LSAT actually administers the LSAT through a separate company called Proctor. And so Proctor is the company that will kind of send proctors available for the LSAT. You will get a proctor that does your check-in and a separate proctor that will actually, watch you.
Yes.
And that proctor you can talk to over chat, but you never see their face, which is a little scary.
Yeah, it was scary.
And they also, every single time they message you, it's like a very loud ping. So I know for some people that it can stress them out because it's like a very fast test and you don't want to get distracted from your questions. But yeah, my proctor was lovely. I think she was like, we were like similar ages, but there was a point, on Hinge Story where they really wanted to examine my necklace, but my necklace is like a tie in the back and my hair stuck in it and I can't get it off. So I actually just took a pair of scissors, cut a piece of my hair off so I could like get my necklace off to like show to her.
Oh my goodness. So we're showing it to her and there were like threats of
Yeah. Yeah. But the check-in process is very like intense. Like I have very poor eyesight when I don't have my contacts in, so I have my emergency glasses, and she was like, "Hold them up and now bend them to make sure there's not like technology." And then I had to show her around the room. And if you have things like bookshelves or any posters in the room, those all have to be taken down, and you can't have anything on any surfaces close to you. So my room looked, or my brother's room, because that's where I was taking it, was like. It looks insane.
Yeah.
It was just walls were bare. There was like a blanket over it. Like, it's like bookshelf. Yeah, they're very intense with the check-in process. But, once you get through it, it's not bad.
Yeah. I will say I didn't have to take down my posters, but then like there wasn't anything on there anyway, but I would have been really upset because I think a lot of them were sticky tacked on.
Yeah.
So I had to go I would have had to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such an intense process. Was it super hard to actually apply for the thing as well? Or was it?
Not
easier
really.
process? 'Cause
No.
I'm looking to do it quite soon.
You just apply on the LSAT website. Although I will say that, just make sure to check the due dates and things like that because you do have to apply for LSATs way in advance from when they are. I think the deadline is, a month before the exam actually is. So if you're applying if you want to do the August one, you have to apply by July
June.
or June. Yeah. So 1 to 2 months.
May and confirming of June. I think you start scheduling like a little later.
How much was it? Like, how much did you pay?
I think from what I remember, CAD. Yeah, no, CAD, it was around $300, $400. Yeah.
It's a very expensive.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 200.
It's in USD. Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
also have an option to pay for a score preview for $45, which most people do. So basically what that is, I did not. But basically what that is you get to see your score and then you have, I think, 6 or 7 days after you get it to see if you want to cancel it so you don't get it released to law schools, or if you just want to keep it. And then if you wanted to retake it, they'll just see like 2 scores.
So for that, I have heard that sometimes when you cancel it, law schools can see that you canceled.
They also can't see. So there's
why?
debates. There's no real like one answer, but there are debates of whether in that case, like canceling is useful, canceling isn't.
Yeah.
Most people do say to just keep it because most law schools just take your best one anyway.
Yeah.
I think the only time I've seen someone choose to cancel a test score is if they were taking it multiple times and then their most recent one was worse than all their other ones and then just cancel it. Yeah.
That would make sense because I know a few, I think only in Canada it is McGill, if I'm correct, but they average the LSAT scores.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I've heard that. But they're also different in their admissions and law.
Yeah, there's more French requirements now than
Yeah,
ever
the
before.
last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So none of us took the LSAT in person, but I did have a friend that did take it in person.
Me too.
And she said that it was kind of a stressful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the LSAT, when you take it, it's not necessarily like super convenient times for like parents to drive
No.
places.
Yeah.
So people are like navigating to these like buildings that don't necessarily, they're not very clearly labeled like LSAT testing.
They're not because it's like by, as you said, another company. I had to take my friend to hers.
Oh.
And it really is just in a random building.
Yeah.
Like they just give you a building and it's usually a building where multiple companies or multiple offices are. So you just go and then, it's just this Prometric.
Yeah.
And it is very much, I don't know if you've ever taken like a provincial exam before, but it's very much like that where it's like, there's like cubicles.
Yeah. And no, I was very dead set on like taking it in person, but after kind of hearing other people that did take it in person's experience, I was very happy I opted to take it online. Even with my horror stories.
And there are horror stories, I feel like, that we can get into.
Do we know how many people are supposed to be in like a room when you're taking like the test in person?
In the testing center?
Yeah, like how many?
All of them are taking the LSAT, actually.
No. Yeah, sometimes you're taking other tests. Because I was looking and someone was taking like, definitely not, I think, not GRE, but I think GRE.
GRE, CPA,
Yeah.
a lot of them do administer tests and those testings. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, not all.
And I wasn't able to go outside because they're really strict about that, but I did take a peek and, it really is just like a computer lab or like an internet cafe.
Yeah.
And so there's multiple people. I think there was up to, from what I could see, like at least 15 people in that same room. There were headphones that you could wear, but I don't necessarily know how helpful that is.
Maybe it's just like noise canceling.
Yeah, they're just like their earmuffs. Yeah, and I think there were other people who were taking different exams because someone was fully typing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
you don't type on the LSAT.
Yeah.
Basically.
Glorified.
I will say one part of the virtual testing that really freaked me out was that someone is literally watching you for the entirety of like the 2.5 hours. And in the beginning, I'm like kind of self-conscious. I'm not gonna lie.
You're like, what? How do I look?
I look so intense when I test. I'm like locked in. I'm like frowning.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I should have tested in person.
Although in the testing centers, so how it works is there's a room where the testing computers are, and then there's a security check. And you can see, so I was here, and you can see they have like fan cams of everybody's cubicle.
Well,
So
like Five Nights at Freddy's.
it's literally like a panopticon. Yeah, you can click through. Yeah, you can like click through. See, Poly reference. Yeah, it looks like a panopticon because they can just like click through, and there's an individual fan cam of everybody.
Okay, now that I'm curious, now that we've heard these, do you guys want to take it in person or virtually? Like, I'm so curious.
You too. Yeah.
Taking that virtually, so I think
Virtually? Yeah. What about you? I'll take it in person. Okay, well, he's gonna get a fan cam of himself.
Yeah, you get a fan cam of yourself.
really fun horror story.
Yeah.
LSAT taking for you, Olga.
I will say though that virtual is very convenient because what they don't tell you is that not all cities have in-person testing centers, and we'll get to that soon.
Exactly. I will say, just to segue some of this into studying for the LSAT, one advantage that I really found was helpful in terms of taking it virtually is that you're able to replicate your exact testing environment every single time you take the practice test, right? If you do know which room that you're going to be testing in, you might as well replicate the exact conditions. So if you are someone that faces things like testing anxiety, I think that might be really helpful for you just to be able to sit in the same environment and then feels like any
I wonder.
a $300.
Can you chew gum?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, why do I feel called out right now?
I think that's specifically like one of the rules of the no-nos.
Yeah.
Really?
I think
They're
if I recall.
very strict. They have like a list of things that you can have on your nose.
Yeah,
Can I
Like
have a-
water?
It's like
not even.
Not even water.
a clear one.
Oh, for the virtual.
Confirmed. You
Yeah,
cannot.
You can.
What about in person?
In person, I only saw they give you 2 sheets of paper and 2 pencils, and that's it.
Oh, so not even water.
And the noise canceling.
Okay, what do you do if you're already chewing gum? Let's swallow it.
Yeah. Well, I think for the check-in, they obviously pat you down, but they also will probably make you.
Oh, shit.
That'd be really weird.
Yeah, so the virtual one, they made sure they were like flip your ear.
Oh yeah, like this.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they made me do that, and they had me like roll up my sleeves. So they're very fair.
They are.
Generally, just be prepared to not be able to like eat, like drink, snack. That's what like the 10-minute break is for.
Actually,
just
some
like-
people take
yeah.
naps. 10-minute break, which I would be I'm so scared because what if I go
I
time?
used my 10-minute break.
You didn't?
Yeah, I like ran to like the bathroom, and then I think I grabbed like cheese because that was like what I really wanted to eat.
I was too nervous. I was like, what if I do something that the proctor doesn't like? And then so I just sat there.
I was very stressed because I will say if you do like for both the virtual and the in-person LSAT, the 10-minute break after you take it, you do need to check back in again. But they weren't very clear as to whether or not like you had to do the check-in within the 10 minutes of the break.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't find information online, so I think I used like maybe 5 minutes, and I used the rest of the time to be like, hey, I'm back. Can you like make sure I'm not cheating yet?
Did yours reply right away? Because 8 minutes in, I was like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I text him, I'm like, okay, I'm done. And he doesn't reply. And I'm stressing out because I didn't know if we had to do it within the 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, please.
Yeah. So we don't know if you actually do need to do the check-in within 10 minutes, but just to be safe.
Maybe you should.
That's kind of cruel.
Yeah.
That's really cruel, actually.
Yeah, just an update on the gum situation. You can, as there isn't an issue with LSAT specifically, but some proctors may tell you no.
Okay. So it depends on the
Okay, just don't chew gum. Like,
I'm a big, like, when I take tests, because if I study when I chew gum and then I chew gum when I do the test, it's
context dependent memory.
Yeah.
Same thing with the room.
I think that goes, back to what you were saying.
Exactly.
There is a psychology to that. You study in the same place, you wear the same clothes sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I like take a shot when I'm studying? Take a shot.
I think that would work. I think
Muscle memory.
I think we make that happen.
The Mental Breakdown Podcast.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, so for today, I was thinking we could do a bit of a special segment. Are you guys interested? Or
Yes, absolutely.
You guys look very interested. Are you actually interested? Can I get a drum roll?
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
We're gonna be doing hottest political takes.
All right.
Or political hot
Exciting.
takes.
And so where are these hot takes from?
Not from me.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, on the basis of today, which is Friday, February 7th, yesterday we actually uploaded a couple of stories asking people that are following the PSSA Instagram to upload some of their political hot takes into our anonymous Google form. So right now in front of me, I have quite a few responses. We have over 20 responses.
Why did you laugh?
This 19.
Just over 20.
Just kidding, guys. We have 20 responses. I wish we had more than 20, but we only have 20 responses.
Why
yeah.
No, seriously though. great turn. Wait. Honestly, though, great turnaround. For 24 hours, you all did such an amazing job. Funny responses. That is crazy.
I'm hungry.
Okay, let's go. Come on, Grace.
Come on, you got it. Let's do it. Okay.
I don't want. I want to see your reaction.
Okay,
so I
you ready?
wanna-
I think we can cut from...
Okay.
No, we're gonna do the intro.
Well, let's start from
The intro is gonna be 30 seconds. You're gonna do great. Okay.
Let's do it from the story part. So yesterday, actually, we uploaded a few stories asking for your guys' political hot takes. All of them are anonymous, and we've gotten quite a few responses, and I'm here to read them out to my 3 other hosts who genuinely have no idea what the responses are and what the hot takes are going to be. So yeah, this is a blind reaction. I'm the only one that knows. I'm going to be choosing from these. So if your hot take was not read out loud, don't worry. We will hopefully get around to it some other time. For today, we're just going to do a couple just with the interest of time.
And I think it's important for everyone to know that in the reactions, we're not necessarily going to be agreeing or disagreeing, trying to understand where the person came from, understand it from a fellow Poli Sci lens as well, and try to unpack it a little bit.
Yeah.
So not necessarily disagreeing or agreeing with the hot takes.
And if you agree or disagree, then
Comment below.
you can either leave a comment or you can just sit and ruminate about it like Poli Sci students always do. Okay.
All right.
Are you guys ready for the first one?
Sure.
We're going to start off a little mild. I thought this one was pretty interesting. I think all of these are really interesting though. But the first one is that John Locke, who we all know, should no longer be taught in political theory classes. Oh my gosh, yeah, lock in. Sorry.
Yeah, we have a sticker. This is lock in.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on that?
I can definitely see where this is coming from. Of course, John Locke, especially Second Treatise of Government, which we are, I'm sure, all very familiar with.
Too familiar.
Has some things in there that do justify settler colonialism to a great extent and just land appropriation. To that end, though, we do live in Canada, and so I guess that kind of explains why it's being so readily taught here, despite its connections with, again, settler colonialism.
Yeah, no, I think the take is definitely coming from that lens. I would assume from the lens of that, like, it's very justifiable morally, from the colonial lens of how it was justified under John Locke and John Locke's Second Treatise of Government. But I've actually taken at UBC, Indigenous Political Theory course, where in the first half we kind of learned and understood the theory about how colonization was justified. And therefore Second Treatise of Government was like one of those primary readings that we did. So I think even in that course where we're really trying to take in the second half, especially a decolonial lens, it was still important to understand how it was justified. So not just necessarily Second Treatise of Government, a lot of other doctrines, and like theories of colonization, European settlers in North America. And I think that is probably why it should be or is taught a lot of times. Whether you think it should or shouldn't be, it is taught a lot of times in Poli Sci courses. But it depends on how it's being framed. I assume that this kind of comment is getting to that.
Yeah. I will say that I had a similar experience. One of my seminars was how Indigenous communities have historically been portrayed in political theory. And so that includes things like John Locke and his second treatise. And it actually interestingly tied that to, as you said, other doctrines. We've tied it into Marx's thoughts on primitive accumulation. And so there's some connections there. And so I think that maybe is why as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we don't live in a perfect society, and I think it's important to address the roots of that. And I don't think that you could cure the diseases that are present in our current system without diving into the depths of and origins of where they came from. So I gotta say that I don't think we should remove these teachings, but rather maybe explore more the nuances that they had in the context they were presented in, and perhaps how that has kind of rippled into the society we have today.
That's very important.
No,
go ahead.
That nuance is definitely important. Like, you're not going to teach the doctrine of discovery at the same lens as it was given when colonizers, settlers first came from Europe. So you're going to you could treat Second Treatise as the same way and John Locke's work in the same way.
Yeah. I feel like it's not taught as a justification, but more of a deep dive into that, because there are a lot of assumptions that go into the justifying of these doctrines and how they're used.
But we definitely get where this hot take is coming from.
Yes.
Yeah. Because then if you take away Locke, you're taking away Aristotle too, who was like, people are naturally slavish and women are like second-class citizens or maybe animals, you know?
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna do a bit of a funny one. I
You
think
thought
this
this
one
was
was
funny?
really funny. Yeah. And okay, so Pierre Polyev is probably, that's how I say his name, right?
Yeah, you said it right.
Okay, Pierre. Okay, I thought you were laughing because my pronunciation was bad.
No. I just like.
Take hasn't started.
No, sorry. I was just like the last clip of Polyev that I watched was.
Pierre Polyev is probably in love with Justin Trudeau and is devastated about his resignation, which is why he is trying to convince us, and more so himself, that Mark Carney is just like Justin.
What is this enemies to lovers like?
No, I see that with so many political, like, okay, every single time on like Instagram or like TikTok, anytime I come across like a political video on my feed, it's just like, oh, these countries are just enemies because they secretly love each other, and they draw like the actual countries as people that are like, I don't know if you guys have seen those videos where they have like they're like, it's like a flag and it's like a round head or whatever, and
they're, like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I have no clue what you're saying.
I'm disgusted that I know exactly what you're talking
I was
about.
like, I don't know why this is okay. I do know why this is on my feed because I'm in Poly and I feel like I probably look at too many political things on Instagram. Anyway, but I was like, wow, that's fun. I
Next
love
time you
seeing
see one, you should send it to us.
Okay.
It is giving shades of how people were shipping at one time Joe Biden and Donald
Yeah.
Trump,
Yeah.
and
What
how
do you
when
mean
Joe
at
Biden
one
dropped out, they
time?
became
They
like
still
friends.
were.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the Batman to the Joker,
Yeah.
right? Like you base all of your like
Yeah.
campaign off of hating one person, and you
I
lose
will
that.
say, you know what? On that note, there have on my TikTok page while the election was going on, there was like AI written fan fiction of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Tune in next episode where we read AI written in
They were very interesting. They were kind of funny too. And I was like, I guess like for some people it's like a way of coping through humor.
Right.
But I'm like, I don't want to read
That was funny.
I don't want to read stories about
That was a fun. Yeah,
That was a
fun
fun
day.
yeah.
Yeah. When I first saw that, I thought that was really funny. Okay, next one. Okay. Next one has to do a little bit with Canada and the US. So this person's hot take was that I saw a theory that Trump wants to crash the US economy because it benefits the extremely wealthy who can buy up a lot of capital when it's cheap. It also explains why he doesn't seem to care about how the stock market is affected by his crazy remarks. I don't know if this is like a hot take,
Well, we
but
in American politics.
yeah.
Oh, I would be shocked if crashing the American economy was good for the wealthiest people, considering
Yeah.
they seem to be doing pretty well right now under the current American economy and the current tax bracket of the United States. Yeah, I get where it's coming from because it seems like there's a lot of moves in the US, especially since we last filmed the podcast where that was before the inauguration. And now there's threats of tariffs for Canada, US, or for Canada, Mexico, China. They're still trying to buy Greenland, whatever that means, and go from there. And Panama Canal saying that they got a good deal. Regardless, I've actually seen the opposite where I've seen hardcore, like revolutionary, like Marxist communists being like, heck yeah, Donald Trump's our guy who's going to destroy America. And then there has to be a new government built up from that.
Yeah.
So I think those are competing theories. And I'd love to see which one actually ends up coming true.
I'm not like an investing baddie, but isn't there a thing where you short stocks when you predict
course.
it's going to
The
drop?
Big Short, 2000.
Yeah.
Great movie.
So
Movie.
is that what he's trying to do? Perhaps.
Is that what the take is trying to?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think the fact that this is a theory is like pretty interesting. Like other people are obviously like in agreement with it, but I mean I can see why there's always like going to be like crazy theories that come up when it comes to
And I think a lot of what Trump has been saying and Donald Trump has been saying, people are confused about, economists are confused about, fiscally conservative people are confused about how this is going to benefit them. So maybe this is kind of a theory to reacts to those insecurities about what's going on.
And actually another thing, I'm in like a political economy seminar right now, and I wouldn't say it necessarily connects exactly to the US, but like there is the whole idea of like the median voters and how they're like the most important people, right? But then they also tend to be the least educated about political things because they just don't care. So I feel like perhaps like some theories like are just coming up with people who are they're just like aware of like the surface level things and not actually aware of like the political, like the impacts of like policies and like how that will look for them as well as for like other different classes of people. So that's just, yeah, that was my first thought when I saw this theory. Also because I literally learned it yesterday and I was like, wait.
I know this one.
Shout out Dr. Alan Jacobs. Head
He's a
head of department, yeah.
And crazy. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Okay. Next one is going to be, okay, so this next hot take was that identity politics and strict political correctness language in practice is exclusionary towards non-Western forms of thought and non-native English speakers. I think this one's a little bit more mild.
Yeah, and it's definitely I see where it's coming from. I speak two languages, and there's a lot of vocabulary that doesn't come across both ways.
Mhm.
And I feel like, yeah, just categorizing in general does leave some to exclude because that is inherently what it does. It's like in separating.
It definitely seems like identity politics has been getting a bad rap a lot of the time recently. Sometimes people believe it's like overcorrective.
Yes.
I think a lot of the time, especially with like the language barrier, like different cultures, people may not understand, especially in a very multicultural area like Canada, understanding the differences. I've never encountered someone where if an individual like misspoke in good faith, that there's never any kind of backlash on it. But I definitely agree where it'd be like, I'm definitely like understanding the take too, if you kind of assert something without necessarily understanding where the individual's coming from. And if it was like misspoken and then there's people getting upset by it, then that I can understand why that people who are from different areas, speak different languages, English is their second, third, fourth language, that it could be a lot harder for them to abide by a lot of like the changing language and vernacular that we are now adopting.
Yeah, there's a lot to be left out, for sure.
Mhm.
How do you
Okay.
feel?
Oh, do you want to talk about it all or?
No, I think I'm in agreement. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, next one. This one is in tribute to our podcast director, AG, who was reading it with me earlier. This one's a little long, so open your ears. The system of opting in for organ donation after death instead of opting out is a gigantic killer we don't even recognize. Yes, there should be religious exceptions or a certain age it takes effect at, but there's definitely workarounds and plenty of other countries have opt-out systems in place. So many of people's concerns, for example, receiving lower quality care if you become a donor, which is a myth anyways, could be basically canceled out with an opt-out system.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the hot take is basically saying instead of opting in for organ donation, opting out would be better.
Oh, okay.
I know personally, I've have many individuals that I know that have opted into organ donation. I don't see, and I think a lot of more people I know would be keen to know that their organs will be donated if they were to pass. And I think that like they just don't do it because of convenience. And opting out is always a thing that you can do for any reason you may want. But it is interesting that in Canada, we don't have an opt-out system when there usually is this shortage of organs and essential like medical like access to them to do these life-saving procedures.
Yeah, to that end, I wonder if it is just merely a matter of convenience and like if there is more of a convenience to there's more of a convenience to simply opting in. So it's like you don't have a choice or just opting out, and which is, I guess, perceived to be a little easier is perhaps where that's coming from.
This begs the question, do you have bodily autonomy when you're dead?
Yeah,
It's very philosophy of you. I don't know.
That is very philosophy
Well,
of you.
It's a very
I
philosophy
think
question.
there is rights to the
It is a philosophy.
there is rights of what like you
So
can't
body. Yeah.
if someone was to die and that you were then responsible for, you did have to like bury them or dispose of the body in a proper way, and that is actually like a law that protects you in Canada. I'm assuming many other places as well. But even if you were to have your organ donation check or opt in or opt out, either way you can opt out or just stay the way you are. So you still would have that bodily autonomy if you chose to.
Like before you die. I guess
Yeah.
after you die, then like you wouldn't because
You wouldn't be able to change because you
Yeah,
already chose.
like your guardians would do that for
You also can't change your will when you're
Yeah.
dead as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right.
I mean, yeah.
I think I don't think that's necessarily a hot take. I think that's quite common a take to change to the opt-out system. I've heard that quite a bit.
This is actually my first time hearing it.
Neat.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't know. Maybe I just don't talk to people that really care about organ donation, but
then is bodily autonomy a positive or a negative right?
We are not a philosophical.
We're
Because okay, should I
Yeah,
just
no, actually use that major for some other stuff. Please.
Yeah. Do you want to try one more, or are you?
Okay, I can do one more then. I do have another one I want to like hear you guys say after though. Anyway, so our very last hot take for today, unfortunately, is that Justin Trudeau's speech on Canada's response to the Trump tariffs was the perfect way to save face after the controversy of his resignation.
100%. Like, I think that's not really deniable even. Like, it definitely made it look better. There's now a common enemy of the United States that Donald Trump has kind of provided the Liberal Party in general, not just necessarily Justin Trudeau, because Justin Trudeau has stepped down, they're running a new leader. But you can also see a little bit of like, okay, well, if there's no more infighting in Canada and if you're expected to unite, obviously you're going to be a little more supportive of the leader of your country, even though there are those many concerns from many Canadians of the status quo in Canada.
So many people were glazing Trudeau
Yeah,
on the media.
no.
Like, I opened
Once it
my
came
phone, I
out.
was like, oh, okay, we did a full 180. Like,
Yeah, I had never seen so much Canadian patriotism in.
that's what I'm saying.
You see them booing the American anthem at hockey games. All those Canadians that have like American flags or like MAGA hats now are kind of looking a little sillier because now there's a patriotism that's associated with Canada. But
Liberals are up in the polls too.
the Liberals have increased in the polls. I think Carney will probably help him in the polls as well if he is leader. I know some people that think
Mark
he's kind
Carney,
of
who
the
is
uncrowned
just
leader.
like Justin.
Carbon tax, Kearney.
Yeah, we'll see how Poilievre's better because he's able to play out and if he is able to
Polyev, who
maintain.
just wants Justin Trudeau to stay in office. Sorry.
He is much.
You're committed to this. Like, you should just write it. Like at this point, you should be the one to write it.
Okay, so
And
I'm
it
gonna
makes
use
sense
like my
for
writing skills for
Poilievre to want to keep Justin in office because he is the person who Poilievre has spent years now attacking as an individual, not necessarily the party as a whole. He's obviously attacked Freeland during that time, so Freeland going to be the Liberal leader would help Poilievre as well. But nonetheless, there does seem to be this not unanimous and unvariable shift towards like pro-Canada, but you definitely see a bit of that shift and less people outspoken against the Canadian leadership compared to the American leadership, which poses much more of a current threat to our economy.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you for your blind reactions. That was really fun. That was like a lot better than I expected. But yeah, so that's all for today's political hot takes. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cap it here just because we have a little bit more to talk about. We are going to be heading back, not heading back.
We are now transitioning back into our LSAT talk. So we'll see you guys there.
3, 2, 1.
Everyone do an L for the LSAT.
But there are no L's.
Okay, but
This L's is typical.
Right?
Okay, you take 2 L's
Whichever one.
and you turn it into
It's
a
your turn,
W because you're
Take
gonna
2 L's.
dub. Get your hand out of the way. So moving back
Okay.
after our break, I did want to ask you guys some thoughts about studying. So as a political science student, obviously we do a lot of studying and I've done a lot of studying for my exams. And the way I study is through flashcards. Very old school, but I think it works and it actually does help me a lot. But after hearing everything you guys have said about the LSAT and like your experiences as well as how it's kind of structured and how they work, I was wondering like how'd you guys like study for it? And I'm sure Caden's pretty curious too because you want to go into, yeah. So like how did you study for it? Like who will start? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to go? Okay. Ariana, go.
Me? I don't know. I think we talked a lot about it. There are books available, as you can see over here, but I feel like, and this is just my opinion, I'm sure there are differing ones, but I think that the books help give you a good context of what might be on the LSAT, but I think the real studying is just doing these practice tests and practice questions, which are all available for you in most prep programs. But if you do want to just self-study, you do have to buy an LSAT subscription either way, which gives you access to past LSATs that the LSAT has released for studying.
Hot take. LSAT is a money grab.
Yes, it is.
Online.
I agree.
Yeah.
Probably
Correct take.
Correct take.
Their
Not even.
business
It wasn't hot. It was like,
almost $400 for a test.
it was cold.
That's
It was ice
crazy. 400 is actually crazy.
Plus, you need to like, if you're paying for books or subscriptions, it's going to be like $300 plus
Like, yeah.
an LSAC fee that you need to pay to access like materials, which is like
The LSAT,
So, like, almost
subscription
1K.
alone- yeah, the LSAT subscription alone is like 115 USD.
And
I think,
they eventually have to make you like they eventually do make you pay it, because I remember I got by for a while without paying it.
Yeah.
But then I think after like you take a certain amount of practice tests and that you access a certain number of like official resources, you do.
You do.
And I would like to advise our viewers that if you want to get out of this money grab, there are certain websites that may or may not have hundreds of LSAT practice tests on them, free of charge. Answers you can find online with explanations as to why those answers are correct, if you want them.
Send me an email. So clearly you studied in a certain way.
Yeah, so Laura, do you want to give us other study tips that you have?
So I was clearly operating.
It's gonna make you want to go into law.
A legal profession.
I want to pass my ethics. I was on a bit of a budget, as I'm sure most students are when they're studying. So I have this favorite website that I refer to when I don't want to buy my textbooks, that I'm sure we're all familiar with at this point. So I go on there just out of a hunch. Like, I wonder if they would have LSAT. Yes. Like hundreds of them. So you download them, and there are online websites that help you navigate the answers, answer books, what's correct, what's not. And that got me through. Like, I had so many practice tests to get through. Ariana, do you want to continue letting us know about your study strategy? And then I can get into...
I think that was the extent of my study strategy.
Practice tests?
Yeah, just doing practice tests. Because again, as we've mentioned, it's not necessarily a content-based test that you can study for in that way. I also study with flashcards, and you can't really do that. So I think it is just... It's a learnable test. So I think what it is just you keep doing these practice tests. There are...
Question types.
I will get into it.
Did I question types? I think that the books were very helpful in like being able to identify them, but past that, I didn't study like by question type. It was just again just taking tests.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So question types are basically like people that have made LSAT study resources like to classify some of the questions that come up on LR and RC as certain question types. So some common ones for LR are like, necessary assumption questions versus like sufficient assumption.
Can we list all of them? Can we get through this?
So you can list all of them if you'd like. Some people really swear by it. I will not lie to you. I don't know what the question types are. I only know necessary and sufficient because Nagar like dropped them.
yeah, I will say that.
I will say that I bought books to study for the LSAT, and
Were they open? Oh,
This is
my
basically brand
my
new.
RC one is still in its packaging.
Didn't even buy the RC one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could sell it.
What's the reading comprehension?
Yeah, get with the game.
Yeah.
I
will
say,
say-
actually, I'm here learning. I'm with you guys. I still have my friend's old. What's the guy? Mike's like Mike's.
I know.
You should be writing down notes right now.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, books. Oh, I'm gonna listen back to this episode.
yeah, there you go. So I actually did take the textbook approach. A lot of people say, don't waste your time on the tutors or the textbooks. I don't know about tutors or online programs, but I will say I found the textbook super helpful. So what I did is I took my diagnostic, I cried. I didn't cry, but you really get humbled,
Oh.
So what was your diagnosis? Is that like a personal question? I'm learning here, so I just don't know. Like,
Are we dropping scores?
yeah.
Like diagnostic scores? I think honestly, I'm comfortable with diagnostic scores, but
I won't drop my finals.
no, me
I know
neither.
that's like kind of taboo, but like diagnostics, like there's always room for improvement.
Exactly.
We're always growing individuals.
exactly.
So Nagar, what was your diagnostic?
I won't tell you my diagnostic, but I will tell you I've gone up 20 points.
But now if I know your diagnostic, I know what you got.
I'm not going to tell you my diagnostic.
I'll get it. Okay, Ariana.
Are we actually sharing our diagnostic?
I don't know. Is that like a personal thing?
That is a personal thing. Okay, guys, disclaimer. Don't go asking your friends what their diagnostic or what they got on their LSAT.
Not, like I'm like if it's like friends you're really close with.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I gotta tell you.
But
yeah.
don't tell everyone that like you're not that close with what
Right.
your diagnostic.
I think it's weird because sometimes people in pre-law can be like weirdly competitive because they're going for the same law schools.
Yeah.
But then at other times, I know it just comes in like good faith
No,
and
I'm
like
very-
genuine curiosity,
I'm
right?
quite fine sharing my diagnostic, although like I don't think mine was traumatizing. Mine was 158. So I took my diagnostic in I want to say May, June. May or June. So I think I took my first diagnostic using like the very proper one, so the one without like logic games, in end of May, and I got a 158. So after that, I was like, wow, I don't need to study.
And what does the diagnostic, is that the first test you ever take? And you don't have any introduction to
Yes.
it?
You haven't studied.
So I guess we haven't talked about like LSAT scores at all. So the LSAT is actually scored, like the lowest score you can get is a 120. Yeah. Very, very few people get a 120, I will just say. And the highest possible score is a 180. Again, this is kind of standardized to like that lovely bell curve. So you will get very few people getting like 120s and 180s. I think a 158 diagnostic would have put me in like, which percentile?
76.
70, yeah.
So it would put me in the 76th percentile of people that do take the test. So the diagnostic is generally what LSAT studying people will just kind of call the first practice test you take. And it basically just is your like very first reference point as to how much you need to study or how little you need to study, depending on your case. I will say a diagnostic like does not make or break your LSAT journey. There are people that do their diagnostic and they cannot improve by like literally 3 points. And there are people that do their diagnostic and improve by like 20.
As evidenced here today.
Did you know how to answer the questions before you took the test?
I had no idea what the test was. I
Yeah.
didn't know what the sections were. I didn't know what the question types were. I was just like, this looks like a fun Saturday night activity.
Yeah. And honestly, it's better that way because then you really see your progress like, as you go and actually do stuff. That's crazy though.
You say that and then you say, like, knowing that you say that you cried. I didn't actually cry. Yeah. But the idea of the diagnostic is to go into it like completely blind because like we said, the LSAT isn't really a studyable test, right? Like it's something that you have to practice for. So the diagnostic will kind of give you like the best idea of like, oh, this is where I'm at in terms of like comprehension and reasoning or the purposes of the LSAT.
I have another question actually. You did mention something about percentiles. Do you just want to go over like maybe you don't have to if you don't want to, but like someone else go over like what the percentiles are and like what exactly is like seen as like what percentile would get you into like
Okay. I can start and then if you guys want to add on.
I actually don't know that much.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'll go for what I know. Me neither. Yeah.
In general.
I'll go for what I know.
Range of scores if we want to talk schools and what would get you in.
Yeah.
I know that as well.
So basically,
school-
you've been
I think
like,
schools might be a little too long. I think we should just talk about percentiles
Yeah.
and what's like a good percentile to land yourself in order to get into most Canadian law schools. And then I think we can move on to
Just say the score then at that point.
Yeah. Well, the percentile is just like the 25.
yeah. So let's say you're in the 90th percentile. That just basically means that, and the law school LSAT will show what percentile you're in with when they release your score. So that basically means, like for example, if I do get 90 in the 90th percentile, that means I did better than 90% of the other test takers who were also taking the iteration that I was in. So I'm not sure what the percentile range is like though to guarantee you a spot in the Canadian law school is the only thing.
Generally, it also really depends on your school because most Canadian schools will do like 50-50, like LSAT, GPA.
Yeah.
The way they calculate GPA really like kind of differs. Some schools are like, I think people will use lingo like L3, so last 3 years of grades, or like B3, so best 3 years of grades. For LSAT score, it really kind of depends, but generally people like to look at like, oh, if you get something above a 160, like you'll probably get into a law school somewhere in Canada.
I know that's the median for Allard, I believe.
I was like 166. Right.
160.
Yeah.
It's 166 now. I remember when I was living with a year or two ago, it's at 165, but it definitely could have changed.
So I think Allard's historical median was 166, but people in recent years are saying that's closer to 167.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. U of T also recently drops their new LSAT medians this year. Their LSAT median actually went up to rank 68 this year. Crazy. Wow. Yeah.
and I think it makes sense. Like it's pretty fair, yeah.
Yeah, they are the top.
Given their
two of the top
reputation.
law schools in Canada. I think.
Yeah.
So I've heard since McGill made their restrictions kind of a little more intense. Less people have been applying, like the French requirements around McGill's law school. Less people have been applying to McGill, and therefore more go to U of T. And
Yeah. So basically, the McGill restriction, if I'm not wrong, is you do have to have a certain amount of French comprehension because some classes are only taught in French.
That's also right. Quebecois independence.
Oh, we're gonna edit that out. Sounds good.
But also Lore job. That's why I was also supposed to be a French minor. Because I thought of going to McGill, but then that... Okay,
You said French minor?
Yeah.
I think you said English minor.
Well, I did also was supposed
Oh,
to be
Many
I've lived many lives.
I actually had a couple of questions just because we were talking about this and then we got we like yapped about other things as we always do. But I did want to take it a little bit back to the LSAT. You guys mentioned earlier, like I think you said logic games were taken out.
Yes.
But then I was like I kept on thinking about this during the entire time. I was like, why were logic games taken out? I want to know why as someone who's not going to take it, who was never interested.
Yeah. Logic games essentially got taken out because it was like not disability friendly. So when we first took the LSAT, I think we were all first time August 2024.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So the August 2024 LSAT was the first ever iteration of the LSAT that didn't have logic games. I don't know about you guys, but because of that, when I studied for the LSAT, I knew I wouldn't have logic games.
Me neither.
So I never studied logic games. Some people say that this has made the LSAT harder because logic games are the least kind of intuitive part of the LSAT, but that also makes it the easiest for you to improve on because if you learn the trick to do them, you get them right. So some people say that the LSAT is actually harder now because, especially if you're not as good as at logical reasoning, because you don't have a section where you can tangibly improve on within a certain short number of months. But the reason they took it out was because the way that logic games are taught, they require you to draw diagrams, and they found that this actually was very very disadvantageous for test takers who were blind. So visually impaired. So it actually did make a difference on their test scores if they didn't get to draw the diagrams out. So which is why it was ultimately removed.
Kind of surprised it took this long.
Yeah, I think it took a while.
I think it took some legal action on behalf of I think.
I guess that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting though.
Because of that, I will say one kind of benefit of getting an online subscription to something like SoundSage, which was literally the only study tool for the LSAT that I actually used, is that a lot of old practice tests that you'll find in books or scans online will actually still have logic game sections in them, but SoundSage will actually give you the option to just practice it without logic games, and they'll score it for you, and they'll track which question types you're bad at. So I would say that's one thing that I found really helpful, at least in terms of paying for a subscription. And the interface is also very similar.
Yeah. And I guess getting newer ones are always good because it's updated so that it helps you actually stimulate the entire simulate, sorry.
Yeah. Some people also think that even though there's logic games,
Do we need a minute?
Stop laughing.
Do we need a minute?
Can we not air that?
No, I think we have to. But anyway, what
do you need guys, I start my internship next month, please. Please.
Okay. Are we good? Are you?
Yeah, okay.
Well, some people say that even though the logic games got taken out of the LSAT, they've actually started integrating that into LR more.
Yes.
So basically what they're seeing was when we took the the August 2024 LSAT, what a lot of people were saying online was the unscored variable logical reasoning section actually featured a lot more questions that were kind of based on these logic games or so conditional kind of.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To see. So even though logic games has been removed as a section, so that's why people are also saying it's good to get more resources for LSAT, because people are saying that they're going to start integrating that kind of thinking into feature.
And LSAT,
that's interesting.
So there is a growing amount of tests that they make available for you to practice, and they add more every now and again. I think they added more this year. Not sure when they'll add a bit more, but yeah. So they are readily making more newer practice tests available. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I did actually hear online that the LSAT questions from August 2024 were really similar to some of the 90s tests. Because apparently those featured a lot of like conditional reasoning questions.
I see.
That's why you should use my resources. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All this gold.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. Now that we did a little bit of like the actual, what the LSAT looks like, how you can like apply for the LSAT, as well as admissions and what the law schools are looking for. We are a podcast and we are political science students. And I do think we like to talk a lot about things that are not political sometimes. And I was just curious about your guys' LSAT stories. You guys kind of dropped a little bit of it as we were talking, but like, lore drop, as Ariana says. Yeah, I want to hear like
horrors of test
what
taking
could like
day.
some students like expect? Like I don't know, maybe someone's gonna take the LSAT like after they listen to the podcast, and they're gonna be like, wait, like Leah went through this, and now I'm going through this.
Well, I think we can start with what Leah.
Yeah, I want to
exactly, and then we can get into it.
Well, so I actually kind of had a little bit of a traumatic LSAT taking experience. So, like I said, I did eventually end up testing for the LSAT in person, but my original plan going into the LSAT was I wanted to take it in person. So I wanted to go to a testing center because I thought they would just help me be less distracted and also like not have my family be around in the house when I was taking the LSAT, just because I thought that would be distracting, which I'm sure would be for a lot of people. So fun fact, the way LSAT like does scheduling for the LSAT is after you register for the LSAT, you actually schedule your test kind of in like a staggered fashion, like a little bit closer to your exam date. So I think if you're testing in like August, like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, I think was like our test date, you like would register on like July, like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th or something. And basically the registration opens based on how early like you want to schedule your test. So I wanted to test on the very last day of this cycle because I like to procrastinate and I like to push things back. So I waited until the very last day of like the registration period or like the scheduling period for your exam to go into the system and schedule my test. Lo and behold, I go into the Prometric website on the day of and I cannot find any testing dates or times for
in person?
For August, 10th in person. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like freaking out. Like the closest exam center is in Edmonton, and the test I would have to take it at like 6 a.m. Like,
Wait. Tell us how far Edmonton was.
Edmonton is from Calgary, which is where I would be taking the LSAT. Like a good 2 or 3 hour drive.
Yeah.
The first available slot was 6 a.m.
Oh, it's like the nearest one's like Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Really?
Yeah.
I'm like freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? So I call the test center. They're like, we're not open on Saturday.
Sorry, that's not funny.
So I'm freaking out because at this point, it's also the last day of the scheduling cycle. So there's no other test like dates and slots like in Calgary for the other 3 days. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm like having a meltdown. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to test online, right? So I make that decision. By some stroke of dumb luck, I'm like, okay, why don't I test on Thursday instead of Saturday? Because on Thursday, like my parents won't be home and it'll be just like, I'll be done by the time like everyone in my family gets back. Sounds like a great idea, right? So LSAT has a lot of different softwares that they will ask you to download to your computer, and they'll do a lot of checks with your computer just to make sure that it is available to them. So lo and behold, it's August 2024. I'm getting ready to take my LSAT.
Florida State?
No.
The Thursday?
Yes. The Wednesday.
So the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like scheduling everything. I'm like making sure that my computer is fine. It's not this computer. I go through computers very fast, but it's my other computer that is compatible with the LSAT software, right? So I go into it. Everything's fine. Thursday rolls around. I'm very ready to take the LSAT. I'm like, I'm prepared. I know my computer's ready. Prometric keeps saying that my computer is
No.
The day before.
No, the day.
Oh, the day of.
Well, yeah. Don't you get an email that says, perhaps you should check your computer software at least 48 hours in advance to your exam?
No, I checked everything. It said it was fun.
But then the day of, it
Because
just decided to
even
be
then-
sassy.
No, even then, like they actually have a program you can run to like test it, right? And everything on my computer like showed up like it was good to go. So I was like, okay, I trust you. It's good to go. But then when it was trying to open the exam, it wouldn't let me. I'm like crashing out. Like, like, this is like 30 minutes after like I was supposed to start writing at this point. I've been on the phone with Prometric.
Yeah.
Prometric basically tells me that they can't help me and hangs up. So I'm like freaking out. Right. So I call LSAT. I'm like literally in tears at this point. I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, I'm so sorry, Prometric sucks. I don't know if we're allowed to air that, but like it does not seem that LSAT is very happy with Prometric here. So I'm calling him and he's like, I'm so sorry, like I have no idea what your issue with your computer is, but I can reschedule you on like another day. Thank God you didn't like actually schedule it to your original day of August 10th, because then we wouldn't have been able to test until September. So I'm like, okay, thank God I dodged a bullet. He's like, yeah, so basically just figure out what's wrong with your computer and then you can test. So
That's so nice.
yeah. So I like hang up the phone. I'm like mentally frazzled like at this point, and I just still can't find out like what's wrong with my laptop. So we eventually take it back to Best Buy where we got it from, and it turns out that when we first got my laptop, my parents actually like installed some like software onto it. I can't remove because I disabled like all the firewalls and everything before like taking it outside because I knew like that would be a problem. But it turns out they like had something like embedded in the software where like I don't even know what it was. But it was like it was some factory thing that like I couldn't like disable on my own. Like you needed to take it to Best Buy and like they needed to like operate or log into my like computer, and then they needed to like uninstall it from like the computer's hard drive or something. So it was literally nothing I could have done, but I was like, it would have been great if you mentioned this to me before I like took the album.
What'd they say?
They were like, oh, that's my bad. Like, I didn't know. Like,
Your parents?
So I went to Best Buy and they were like, oh, that's our bad. We didn't think like you like this would become a problem. And then they took
And all was
well. And you never have to take it again.
and now
So
we'll
good.
never take it again.
Yeah.
But that's my horror story.
Yeah.
I can see the tears.
She's getting war flashbacks.
But apparently, Lola always thinks I'm funny, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I think I just have like very shiny
love
eyes.
For you. Yeah. I don't know if my horror story is that. Like it matches up. I don't think so. It was just when I had to submit it. So again, we were talking about proctors and how you really just don't see them. You communicate them through text. They are real people. So sometimes they won't reply right away. So I was taking it. My last section was, I think it was RC, and I was done. And I hit submit. And I did that before reading that before I submit, I would have to go to the proctor and text him and say like, oh, can you do a check of my room before I hit submit? So I hit submit, and it goes back to the LSAC like home screen.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh, did it submit? Is it gonna get invalidated because the proctor didn't check my room or anything before? So I'm texting this proctor like, hey, is my score valid? Were you able to check everything? Like, is everything okay? He doesn't reply. And then he logs off. And so it shows that he left the chat. So I'm sitting here like, did the last 3 hours not count for anything? Do I have to take it again? And so who do I call first? I call LSAC. And they say to call Prometric. I call Prometric. They say to call LSAC. Oh my God. And eventually I get onto, so I call LSAC again, and it's not the same operator. And so this is after, I think 15 minutes each of being on hold for both parties. And he just checks it. And he goes, yeah, no, I see your score here. Like, that could have happened.
Sees the score like immediately?
No, not the score, but he's like, oh, I see that. That'd be crazy. No, he's like, oh yeah, I see the submission here. Like, it's completed. The first person could have said that to me. Instead of me having to go back and forth, I even sent emails too. And what's funny is that they replied to my email days after. And it's like, it's over. It's done. We can't do this anymore. But yeah. So they did end up getting my my submission, so that's good.
Yeah, you got your score.
So yeah, I got my
Everything's
score
good?
and everything.
Okay.
So what is
Congrats. What was your score?
Oh my gosh.
So like talk tonight, like after, and like on Sunday.
Yeah. No. So that's why I was worried. I was like,
Oh gosh, I
oh, we can talk about that.
have a horror story, but I actually do have a horror story, and that's me.
It got invalidated.
I can get
Okay.
into the writing sample a little bit. So a lot of people stress about it and they're like, what is this big writing thing I have to do? It actually does not count into your score at all.
Yeah. No.
It just gets submitted to universities by LSAC to show that, you know, you're not just getting through your uni degree with AI generated content,
Right.
and that you are capable of writing essays because
It
that's a
shows you can
fundamental
write.
skill.
Like
Yeah.
something like historically when people would take the LSAT on like pen and pencil, some people would like literally draw on the writing sample.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that for them. Yeah.
Actually, fun fact, August 2024 LSAT was also the first time they changed the writing sample from just like writing sample to the argumentative writing sample.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
true.
I don't think much changed except like they want.
No, yeah. It was literally if you have taken like first year history courses or like AP history, it's basically they give you a bunch of like arguments or documents, and then you just kind of have to like formulate an
that
argument
time?
based on those
It
documents.
is time. You get like a certain amount of time to do
35 minutes to
15 minutes.
to look at it and then
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Exactly. So unlike the LSAT, you're not just straight putting in your answers. You get the passages and your prompt, and you get to kind of read and annotate and write notes on the side on like what you're actually going to start typing away at full speed once it unlocks. So yeah, you have 15 minutes of prep time, and then it looks like 35 minutes for the actual essay writing, which is plenty of
Oh
time. Like,
yeah.
I would not worry about this. We're Poli Sci students. We can do this like half asleep at like 11:59 p.m.
Personally, 4 a.m. is a good time for me.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
You should book
like writing.
writing sample
Yeah.
at 4 a.m. That probably
Yeah.
is more accurate.
Like what I did for my writing sample was I just started writing in like the 15 minutes.
Me too.
Yeah, and I just like looked at it. And
Yeah.
I don't do stuff.
I didn't need 15 minutes to prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also the excerpts they give you are like 3 sentences and there's like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And then they ask
exactly.
you to like make 4 one
Yeah.
and then argue.
How long
That
is
section is
it?
also all online.
How long is the writing sample supposed to be?
50 minutes in total.
Yeah.
But
Oh, sorry, not the time, like the
Oh, they don't tell you, do you?
no length. Okay,
Yeah.
No
that's
length.
interesting.
Yes.
Mine was about the environment, and like I think I argued. I was like pro like factories and stuff like that because it's just easier. I was like, right.
Yeah. This is about like writing inside. And I was like, oh, this.
My one.
Yeah.
What'd you get?
Mine was like, should we teach classics or like contemporary works in elementaries and high schools as part of the curriculum? I was, this is kind of boring.
Oh my gosh. What's your story?
Yeah,
Well,
what's your
Just get
let's get into
invalidated.
it. So, like the prometric kind of system checking things that you have to do, for the writing sample, you have to have all kinds of like writing assistants, like Grammarly, any other kinds of things disabled.
Oh no way!
I did. I went into my settings, I
Grammarly.
turned the thing off. I don't even have Grammarly Premium. There's absolutely no reason for me to be using it. And then I am like halfway writing through my writing sample, and it didn't stop me from taking it. Halfway, I'm going through it, like on my screen, and I see the stupid red Grammarly. I'm like, I swear, like,
Your hard draw.
I was initially writing sample. Could just see me look at the screen and go, "Oh, shit." Like verbally.
Good reminder. Thank you.
What do I do now? I guess I'll just like finish it and hope and pray for the best. So I hit submit and I'm like, man, I am so cooked. I'm so beyond cooked. And I go on Reddit and many people are saying, this
Not Reddit.
this happened to me. Is it accepted?
Yeah, it was very helpful. Yeah, it was so helpful.
Reddit was
Look,
They're good
yeah.
people.
Yeah, there are good people in
There are
Reddit
good
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. So apparently some people got away with it. I didn't. I didn't.
You say your score is invalidated.
No. Samples invalid.
You're like score late.
Super late. Because I rescheduled.
Because you had to
another-
retake it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally had to rescind.
The writing sample.
I will say that you know how you have to do the same checks that you have to do with like an
Mhm.
online thing. There wasn't anyone administering mine. So it just showed the instructions. So I didn't even know. Yeah, for the writing sample, I didn't even know if what I was doing was correct because I was like, they were like, "Oh, turn around." And I was just like, I was like, I was like, yeah.
I was like,
Literally, it's so awkward.
But yeah, that was
I'm
my-
so sorry that your score got
What was your
invalidated.
second prompt better? I don't even know what my second prompt was, but I remember it having a crazy end line that I was like, oh man, I'm just so brain dead at this point.
honestly, I wish like we could like see.
I know, because I know.
Can you not?
Oh, mine was just not. Mine was like,
Story on Reddit of someone being like, "Yeah, I was really proud of it," so I screenshot it, and then that ended up like
invalidating the score. They don't.
Like,
No.
same with like your actual LSAT, like you never actually get your like score back. Of, like,
Yeah,
what you got.
they just showed that it's like validated.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, but I was like very
You liked
proud of
yours?
what
Yeah.
I was like, I like that. It was like,
Oh my god, I
just
remember it.
freaking side. I remember the writing from
What was
the
the-
end line.
What was your end line?
Should electronic sports be like equated to all other kinds of sports and be in the Olympics?
What did you say?
Like legal budget.
Yeah, basically.
10-second countdown, and I think my last line was otherwise kids in our generations would end up idolizing people like Ninja rather than LeBron James.
That's actually quite funny.
Who's
Yeah,
Ninja?
you got me.
I think he's a streamer.
Because the rest of it was like a pretty good argument.
That's crazy.
Otherwise.
So we can obviously see what stance you took.
Who's Ninja?
Yeah, I hit a banger in the end. I mean,
I remember mine was silly. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have fun with this. Yeah, it just seems so unserious. I was like, okay, I guess.
Ninja from Fortnite.
I was like, oh, like what if
Fortnite.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to argue what I argued, but I was like, oh, this is so fun. I love being messy.
it's literally just on like genetic modification. So like,
is it ethical? Okay.
and then they're like bringing up, they're like use Jurassic Park and Mary Shelley's
I think
friends.
mine was like, is it ethical to have companies like be environmentally regulated? And so
Oh,
I
that's actually interesting.
but I was in a silly goofy mood, so I guess I argued. I don't know. Yeah, I wish I could save
I
it.
really wish you could access it because I feel like some of those things, like it would be like the funniest things.
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
when
take
we
that,
graduate law school, they'll send
No,
envelopes
not an
like,
environmental
letter to yourself from grade 7.
Yeah. Next episode, we're emailing LSAC. Actually, yeah. No, if you've gotten in or if you retake a writing sample, can't you just ask for an old one?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
theoretically, like the school.
Right.
So could you just be like,
That's what I was thinking.
Go to admin. Yeah, go to admin.
Oh, hey. I don't actually want to go to your school. Can you open up my application real quick?
Anyway,
it's fine. Traumatizing.
Those are very nice, traumatizing stories. I really appreciate the knowledge that you guys are sharing. I am not going to do any of those.
Have you taken
Gradually
anything?
will be downloaded off my laptop.
Get download that thing.
I will not be in Calgary and try to go to Edmonton.
Yeah.
And I will submit as soon as I can
yeah,
because it'll work fine for you.
it's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, a lot of like the Macs, like new systems, were compatible.
Oh, what's-
really? What? Oh,
Because I remember the Macs.
It's like a problem.
Is it the AI writing assistant that's embedded in it now?
oh, because they have
Just
Apple AI.
I
now.
don't know. It's like the Mac Sierra OS. Like they don't let it because I know this because like when I was flashing out on Thursday of the August, like when they were like, "Do you have like another computer you can use?" And my brother's was like the Mac Sierra.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh shit, you did.
if I use my brother's computer, I have to uninstall a bunch of things.
He was like, this was like quite early in the morning for him.
Oh,
So, like, he was like still sleeping, and then he was just like getting woken up every 5 minutes by being like, "Dad, can you log into so I can test if it's compatible with the Microsoft?"
Then it wasn't.
and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Boy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for sharing those horror stories.
Yeah,
Those
you.
are really interesting.
Grace, what's your
I was like never. So I got an old LSAT book. I took a look at it and I was like, I don't want to do this. So I did it. And now I have an internship instead.
Grace has a happy story, not a horror
Yeah.
story.
My horror story was opening the LSAT book.
Yeah, that was the horror.
Yeah, I actually tried to do a few of them. So I was originally interested in
Do you
going
wanna
to
read
law.
We have material.
No. I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
But I like did open it and I tried to do it and I was like, this is just not working with me. I was like, I don't want to do this. That's why I considered like other things too. And then I was like, I don't want to go to law school. And then I thought about the price. I thought it was like 200, but I think I was looking at the USD. So I was like, 200 for like an exam is so expensive. And then I thought about like the law school like prices and I was like, do I really want to pay that much like to go to school again? Anyway, but thank you guys for sharing your little horror stories. Those are really fun to hear and like good thing I'm not doing that. Like
I will say that studying for the LSAT can be fun. Like there were genuinely times where I was like kicking my feet and giggling. At
Some
how
of the
much fun I was
questions,
having.
some of the questions are just so ridiculous. Like I took pictures of some because I was just so amused. They were like, there was one in LR where it was like, yeah, a dog. Therefore, dogs. I think the conclusion was like, therefore, dogs are logically like able to run a government because they have like, they have a brain and they have like a. If you assume that they have some other stuff,
if we let dogs run the government, then what kind of government would
Well,
we?
speaking of
one better than the one that we're seeing in certain places.
Speaking of, this is like a segue, but
Dog
do you think that like what?
Well, again, thank you guys for your LSAT study tips, explaining a little bit of the context. It helps me as someone who wants to take it soon, either in the June or August session of the upcoming 2025 year, and a little bit of help and reassurance about it. Thank you, Leah, for joining us, or I guess myself and Leah joining you guys.
Yes, thank you.
The guests for today. Yeah, I hope that anyone who's interested has a Poli Sci student who wants to get into law and is thinking about taking the LSAT. I know that's a large chunk of us, but again, I was saying at the beginning, there is going to be an episode not on law paths, but on Poli Sci paths later on in the year for the podcast. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming to the Menti B podcast once again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Like, subscribe, and follow. Leave a comment.
For two.
Share.
Promote. Leah can keep smiling. We treat our guests very well.